careers panel, a bit different to Ricky's CV workshop. I wanted to get together a couple of people that I thought might be really good sharing their experiences in cybersecurity. So I always get asked, how did I get into cybersecurity? And it's not an easy question for me to answer. I might introduce the panelists first though, and let's get them on screen. Ian, I might need your help with this.
That's okay, guys. You can turn your cameras on now, or just the audio.
Either way.
Hello.
I'm going to see if we can pin everyone. We'll see how it goes. But that works great. Hey, Fabio. So Fabio is a risk and security executive. He has over 23 years of international experience working for private companies and large multinationals. He's worked in a variety of management, technical, and advisory roles. Currently, Fabio is the executive manager and group head of the Cyber Threat Detection and Response. I think you call them a cell, don't you, Fabio, at IAG? And is accountable for the prediction, prevention, detection, and response of cyber threats, as well as cyber defense strategy, engineering, and analytics initiatives. That's a really big mouthful and sounds like you have a lot of responsibility, Fabio. Thank you so much for joining us and taking the time today. Next we have, I will introduce Cav because she's on screen there. Cav is a qualified cybersecurity professional with a very large ICT career behind her. She's keen to start off in the cybersecurity industry, having completed a certificate in cybersecurity and a work experience program. She's currently on a continuous learning path amid all of our current situation and relying on online resources for upskilling in cloud computing, threat hunting, among others. She'd love to call herself an intellectual omnivore, a travel enthusiast, which might be a little hard at this time, a minimalist in the making. Maybe we can have some KonMari discussions as well, and a fan of cricket, dislikes Vegemite, we'll agree to disagree, and a huge believer of common sense. So thanks, Cav, for joining us. And we also have on the line here too, where is Helen. So Helen comes from a website and computer networking background. She's interested in analysis engineering and making new things since childhood. In 2017, she helped found the UTS Cybersecurity Society and became the leader of that club in 2019. She now works in information security at EY, is active as a creator artist in the online fanzine community, and just started making original games with her friends. She says it's not about how long you spend at uni, but what you do to show you're different. Unfortunately, though, the graduation ceremony that she was meant to have this year has been postponed, so hasn't yet graduated. Thank you, Helen, for joining us.
Good to be here.
You might want to speak up a little bit, Helen. Get a bit closer to the mic, maybe.
Is this better?
A little bit.
Okay.
So I always get the question asked of me, how did I get into cybersecurity and what advice do I have for people? And really, that was a long time ago for me now. And the way that I got into cybersecurity wasn't exactly conventional. And yeah, there we go. My dogs are Zoom bombing me. So I don't really feel qualified to give advice on that, as the way that I got into cybersecurity, I was working as a tech support analyst for a dial-up internet company. And a girl that I met at my fire twirling club told me that her company was hiring someone to take on a role supporting PKI infrastructure. And I had no idea what PKI infrastructure was. I probably still don't. But I knew I was tired of telling people how to unplug their telephone line and plug it into their modem. True story of having someone send me a picture of their Omega zip drive that they thought was their modem. So it was a little bit of a frustrating career. So I went for the interview and I got the job. And lucky for me, I was able to move upwards, sideways, backwards, and up again to get where I am now. I have done a lot of different areas of cybersecurity. I've done auditing, ethical hacking, as we used to call it back in the day, PCI DSS, lots of random things, and then finally ended up in incident response. But most of that has just been through what I think is luck or sheer chance. I'm not sure if that's still happening today. So my first question is to Fabio, is how did you come to enter the information cybersecurity field? And did you take a usual path, or is it something similar to mine?
Yeah, thank you. Given the time being in cybersecurity, I'm not sure how much this is relevant these days, but I started in the network department because back in the days, security was just a component of either the network department or the system administrations. We didn't have a security officer or a cybersecurity per se back in the days. I've always been a big fan of security since around 2000 with Culture Dead Cow and the Corifiers. As soon as I discovered the tool, it was just in my mind, this is what I want to do for a living. So it's actually been slowly moving through, I guess, various IT departments from back in the days, 33.6K modems, telephony and PBX, moving into data networks and managing switch and routers for big companies. Then moving into IT and system engineer, do a bit of project management, IT project management, software development. And then ended up around early 2000, where a big and large organization, at least in Italy, they were starting forming security function, ended up working in the security department. Interesting enough, I got a call one day saying your computer is full of viruses, but they're not active. And my response was, yeah, because I just need storage because I'm studying them, because I want to write my own. And so they asked me, well, stop working for the network department, come working in security, because now we do this for a living. So that was a very, very cheerful day for me. When I relocated to Australia, it's been technical security, doing SOC type of work, and then moving into consulting, advisory, architecture, and management. Most of the time, my career has been, I've been lucky enough for a manager, a mentor, or a senior person to sort of guide me as the next step. My recommendation will be for people that are getting into the career right now to start build your own 5 years path and where you want to be, because your next step might not necessarily be where you want to be in the future. It can be just a mean to get there.
Yeah, thank you. I think mentioning the mentor is a really important part as well. I've had a lot of mentors over my career too, and they have definitely helped me. The other point that I wanted to have a little laugh at was the cult of the dead cow. And, you know, I pretty much got into this through IRC as well. Even maybe a shout out to Pattis if he's actually watching, who sent me back orifice, I think it was, and he sent me a driver file and told me I needed to install it on my computer. And I trusted him and I did. And that was probably what got me into this career. So Helen, you've recently graduated from UTS. I met you last year when you were still an intern. You've started working full-time this year with EY in their information security practice. So congratulations, that is pretty amazing. Your degree was based in engineering with majors in networks and security. When did you know you wanted to focus on cybersecurity? Was that at uni or was that before?
So I actually didn't think that security was something I could do as a career. My friend in high school was the MIRC fiend who brute forced our Wi-Fi password. And I watched her do that, and it was a GUI tool, and I thought, oh, okay, that's a bit easy. That's not exciting at all. So I was on my way to becoming an engineer. But then I ended up at Cisco doing my internship, the first one, and I learned that layer 2 switching was dying which was my favorite layer, by the way, my favorite part. And so I went, oh no, this is terrible. I need to find a new career path. It just so happened about the same time, CySCA was still around, and they did a reach out to our university. So that's the National Cybersecurity Competition Australia. They stopped doing that last year, but this was in 2015 or 2016. I don't really remember at this point. So that's how I got into security.
Excellent, thank you. I like that you know, your career choice already at uni was dying, and you had to think of something new. So lucky you found cybersecurity.
Yes.
Cav, so you've also recently graduated. You did a Certificate 4 in cybersecurity at the Canberra Institute of Technology. But your background is in ICT, web applications, and mobile app testing. You also have a degree in engineering and a postgrad diploma in IT. So having been in the technology space for a number of years already, what's prompted you to study cybersecurity?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. I had an exposure into audits, like IT audits earlier back in my software testing career. So I was a part of ISO 27001 and as well as CMM audits. So represented my team doing like some bit of physical security as well as securing the servers and things like that. So somehow within myself, I knew that if I was to choose a niche field, I was going into cybersecurity. So at a logical point when I took a break in my career, I thought this is a great time to actually upskill myself, take some formal certification and go forward with it. So yeah, that's how I pushed myself into it.
That's perfect. That's actually a good news story for compliance. I mean, normally used to everyone hating it, but for that to drive you to consider it as a career is a win, I think, for all the GRC people out there. Well done. So again, my career has been a little bit different to what a lot of people's career would be these days. I started out in one company that ended up being 5 different company names and around 6 or 7 different roles. But that was over about 12 and a half years. And I was with that company, which ended up being Verizon, for quite a long time, which is very unusual today. I did get to move around in many different areas, as I talked about earlier, and ended up in their Verizon, the risk team, doing IR. So I've stayed in IR for a little while now, but moved to a few different companies. I'm going to start with Helen. You did a couple of internships throughout your degree, and I keep getting asked, you know, how do I go about getting an internship? And given that I dropped out of my microbiology university degree after year 2, I never actually went through an internship. So how did you go about finding your internships, and were there any challenges that you faced getting an internship in cybersecurity?
So I think the main thing which I realized was that there's kind of like 2 parts to it. One is the fact that you need to find a company that will be willing to take a chance on you and teach you everything. And then the other part is yourself. So when I was looking for the first internship at Cisco, that was very hard on me because all these mental health issues and the stress of having to find an internship, and just getting rejections and thinking maybe I'm not good enough, or just not really understanding how the process works, because it is a process when it comes to big companies. And then the other part is the companies themselves. So I've noticed lately that a lot more cyber places are doing internships, which is lovely. But when I was looking for internships, there weren't really any cyber internships. And the first one was networks, and the second one I did was digital forensics, which was not the incident response type. It was the other type. So what I did, I really, it was all about conquering my own insecurities and my own like feelings and just getting out there and seen by employers, because employers don't know you exist, and I don't know they exist either. And you just need to go out to events or just do conferences like these, and then you'll learn about more companies, and then you can talk to people from those companies and see what they're looking for, and then you can sort of learn that kind of stuff that they're looking for and just get yourself on the path to becoming someone who knows that stuff, and then they'll see that you're doing it and they'll take a chance.
That's really excellent advice, Helen. I know for myself, if I think back when I first started out in this career and you had to ask me what job do I want to do in 5 years, I wouldn't have been able to answer that question. I mean, back then my job really wasn't mainstream. And I think that a lot of people still don't realize that cybersecurity is a career option. They watch shows like Mr. Robot and think it's just, just hackers and there's nothing in it for them. But when you get out and you experience the the community and the different areas, you see that it's actually quite a broad environment. There's a lot of different aspects to it. But thank you for sharing that, Helen. I think that's really good advice. Cav, you are also sort of looking for work experience. You've been a part of a work experience program as part of your studies. What have you found useful since you finished your studies to help keep skilling yourself up? You're on mute, Cav. Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I've been actively involved in attending meetups and catching up with the professionals as well. Apart from that, I did after I finished my studies, I did my work experience as well as did a virtual work experience, and I also rely on online resources to keep myself, improving my skills. So that's how I keep going with it. So I think it's like Helen mentioned, it's pretty essential to network and go to the meetups and learn what is trending, understand what companies are expecting, what skills they are looking for and things like that. So that kind of helps me with what I need to keep myself, interested in, and also start learning. So I'm also looking at a couple of things like cloud computing and CISSP certification and things like that. So yeah,
it can be hard to keep up the motivation sometimes, can't it?
All right.
It's when you're having to pick some studies on your own, it's not always easy. So I commend you for choosing some areas and sticking to it and looking to keep upskilling yourself. Meetups are very important as well. I think this has been echoed a few times over the last few days, and certainly at lots of different conferences that I've been to as well. So on the set,
sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and also the challenges like the SANS hack challenge or the over the wire challenges. Those are very interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
And they just help you keep improving.
Yeah, get together with some people and do a capture the flag. You don't need to do it on your own. It can be a little daunting when you're on your own and you can't even complete the challenges created for 14-year-old kids. That's what my friends told me anyway. So getting a chance in cybersecurity is pretty hard. I think everybody knows that, even if you're in cybersecurity. There are lots of jobs advertising for senior positions or positions requiring 5+ years. So how do you get that experience? It can be quite daunting for job seekers. So Cav, your interest lies in the blue team area. So during your studies at Canberra IT, did you get any exposure to blue team experiences or internships?
Yeah, I mean, that was interesting, actually. I was more inclined towards blue teaming, probably because of my analytical skills. I can say I was more catching up on log analysis and things like that. So I got really good opportunity with participating in CDF as a blue teamer. So I think winning that was like giving me more confidence that, yeah, I think I'm cut out for that kind of
Nice.
incident
Congratulations.
response and blue teaming activities.
Yeah, perfect. That's awesome. Fabio, what are the key things that you think a team needs to have in place to be able to successfully bring on junior staff and train them up? I know that's not as easy as some people might think it is. So if you were going to do that rather than hire an already skilled professional, what would you look for?
Yeah, I think as a team, you need to have certain capabilities in place in terms of the right level of technology, the right level of process and procedure in place, but also already have a level of mid and senior people that can actually take these junior staff on a journey. I don't think there's a lot of value in getting junior people and use them as data input to tools, because they're not going to take the opportunity at the best as a learning opportunity. So you need to have already something in place. So the work that be commissioned for the junior people, chunked enough in size that are doable for them, still giving some level of stretch, some level of challenge, so they can think outside the box and understand what it's going to take to get there. But definitely you need to have mid and senior people that can actually pass on knowledge and actually have the opportunity to take the time to do it, because it takes time.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of teams find, is that it does actually require almost a full-time position to train up someone that is junior in the role. And a lot of security teams are already potentially understaffed. So people think it's quite easy. I'll just bring in a junior and you can train them up. But that will often backfire if you don't have the time to dedicate to actually teaching them, because they will get into that role and get nothing from it because everyone is too busy, through no fault of their own, no fault of the person who's been hired. It just doesn't work out. So it is a tricky thing. And I realized I did skip over another question I had for you earlier. I wasn't doing a very good job of reading my notes. So as a hiring manager, you'd face some challenges in retaining people in roles, and also finding candidates. So we've had Ricky's CV workshop today. What are a few things that you look for in a candidate that might help them get over the line?
Yeah, so I usually look not at the best, but the best fit for the team and the best person that can bring skills and line of thinking that might get my team where it needs to be over the next 12, 18, 24 months, right? Break it down is usually a good, solid foundation of technical skills. I know someone has said in the community that it helps a lot to know how computer works if you are in cybersecurity, so I'm a big believer in that. I want people that they may not have a cyber background, but they have, software engineering skills, networking skill, IT system skills. They know how computer works and they can make them work. The other thing that I'm looking for is the ability to respectfully and professionally speak up and challenge the current line of thinking. What I usually say to my team is the worst thing you can do to me is keep saying yes. If there's something that we have been doing over the last period of time and we found something new, or there's a different way or a better way to do it, let's pick up, let's put it on the table. Let's have an animated debate if that is going to get us to the promised land. I don't think it's difficult to hire the right people. It just takes time, right? So from experience, and I usually work with the financial services, and because of that, large company, there is a level of corporate red taping. It takes at least 3 months from interviewing and get people on board.
Yep, off mute. Yeah, I think it rings true when you talk about culture, and that's been my experience as well. Both for me personally, when I've been hired into teams. When I started out in IR, I had no IR experience, but they knew that I was hungry to learn, and technically I was capable. So it was just a matter of, throw me in the deep end, which is where I end up being thrown usually. And I swam, and that's worked out really well. I also agree on having that bit of a background on how things work. I even feel like for myself, I have a few gaps in that, and it does prevent me from being what I feel like could be my best cyber self. So yeah, when it comes to sort of getting into a cybersecurity role, if you are looking to upskill in areas, don't look past the, an A+ or, getting yourself a computer, pulling it apart, putting it back together, build your own rig, that kind of thing. Because even if it's not cybersecurity, if you talk about that in an interview, I think you'll find the interviewers, will be impressed that you're going out of your way to actually try and learn something new and teach yourself something. And that goes a long way. So I did have a couple of just speedrun questions just before we finish up, actually on time, which is amazing. So Fabio, if you had a cyber sleuth name, what would it be?
Cyber. I don't know.
That's not very creative. And do you have a favorite cyber superhero?
Cyber superhero. There would probably be Sword Designer, the guy that's behind Open Wall and John the Ripper. Oh, nice, nice. Cav, what's your cyber sleuth name? You're on mute, Cav. Yep.
Yeah, not really. Haven't thought of it.
You haven't thought of one? What about, who's your favorite cyber superhero?
No. I'd say Batman.
Batman, nice, good call. And Helen, what's your cyber sleuth name?
I wouldn't say that on public record.
All right, yep, for OSINT. And who is your favorite cyber superhero?
Not really cyber, but I do like Grace Hopper, who is badass.
Yeah, nice. So I talked to Ian earlier. For everyone out there on Slack at the moment, I am going to do a giveaway for some ComfyCon merch. If you can guess who my favorite cyber superhero is, and so this is a fictional character. I'm going to go until I'll let the, maybe someone start a thread, and we'll go until dinner break and maybe see if anyone can guess it. Up until the dinner break, and whoever wins, I will send some ComfyCon merch to. But for now, thank you so much, Fabio, Cav, and Helen, for joining me. I hope that everybody's found that useful.